I'm Lynn Taylor. I'm an indie author interviewing other indie authors, and today I have Anthony Drake for the first time.
Salutations.
So Anthony is on our team, the TA Books team, and he has four published books. The first book that he has is The Journal, and we'll talk about that series, and then his last book he just came out with. But this is a question I ask all the indie authors that I talk to. What inspired you to start writing?
Well, I really feel like it kind of happened in stages for me. I mean, when I was really young, my mom would always read, bedtime stories to me, but I mean, they weren't just like little short books. They were, big chapter books, novels. I mean, as long as I can remember. Actually, my sister always said she wanted to be a writer. And I always remember thinking when I was little, like, that'd be a pretty cool job to just write books. I also wrote for a project in like seventh grade. I wrote a story, and my teacher at the time was just blown away. Wanted me to put it in some, I guess you'd say like I forget what you'd call them, but like a young novel or a young author's kind of thing. I never did at the time, and didn't really think much about it. After that until really after high school when I started writing the journal.
Yeah. Well, and the journal, how long did that take for you to, like, when you first wrote that first chapter that ended up being like way later, how long did it take from like the beginning to actually finishing the first journal? Do you know?
Oh, from the writing the prologue to actually finishing the first book,
Yes. Yeah.
I would say, to be honest, it was probably like 3 years. It was quite a bit of time. I was pretty hesitant, even after writing the prologue, there was a pretty big gap of time. And then it took a while till I really got serious. I mean, once I was really serious about writing it, was probably like maybe 18 months or something. I feel like, from actually sitting down to really start writing it and getting it published.
Yeah. Well, and you and I both kind of had the same beginning, because we had a mutual friend that published a book, and we were like, "I'm sorry, you did what?"
Mm.
And like, just that was as easy as, you know, anything. I'm like, "No, you published a book. That's a big thing." And he's like, "No, it's really simple." And so you and I went down that journey of trying to publish a book, and just like
Hmm.
going back and forth. I'm like, "This is how you do it." This like I stumbled. We stumbled for the first two books we did, like your first book and my first book. But, and it's kind of interesting. A lot of people say that they didn't realize how easy it is to publish a book. And I mean, it's definitely hard, but in general, it can be done. It's pretty easy.
It's not as hard as you think, but sometimes not as easy as some people make it sound. I mean, I will say for the audience, you definitely helped me a lot with the Amazon portion of it, getting it going and doing the Kindle Create and all that. Honestly, at that point, writing the book was easier than getting it published, in my opinion. But
I was gonna say the opposite. I was gonna say I had an easier time with the Amazon side, and you had an easier time with like the formatting. That was something I had to learn, and so I think that we also kind of helped each other with that too, because you were like, "Ah,
mm-hmm.
I got this. This is how it should look." I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Or I would say something over and over and over again, like making my way 700 times
Yeah,
in one
yeah.
book,
Mm-hmm.
and you had to catch that. So, yeah, and that's kind of what I don't think I've ever really talked about the growth and the birth of TA Books and like where that came from. And so that's kind of like you and I were, yeah, we are the main like first two people that started this
Mm-hmm.
and then brought on the other girls. Um, and so that's kind of where it was, is that we were trying to figure this out together and then just trying to like use our strengths with each other. And like you were really good at the editing part of it, and like you were my editor and I was your proofreader, and then vice versa. And like just having a team of people is huge, and I know that we've helped May and Talitha very much with doing the same
Mm-hmm.
thing, being able to pull into their strengths and then just help them learn the Amazon side and the formatting, and here's what we did that messed us up, and here's what you can do to like skip over all those hurdles we already jumped.
Right. Yeah, you and I really leaned on one another, but it definitely helps having, multiple people kind of just look at it and go over stuff, make sure whatever you're, putting out on paper makes sense. And, I mean, even just the editing, you can read something 100 times and think you've caught every single thing. And then you get your proof of the book and you're like, oh, there's like seven things right here. How'd I miss all those in a row? But, other people can catch those, a lot better for whatever reason.
Yeah. Well, so that kind of goes into your, or at least I can segment into your segue. We can go
Segue.
into we can segue into your first book that you came out with, so the journal. Now you're crazy and you decided, hey, I'm going to be an indie author and I'm going to come out with a series first, which is insane. Like you just took hard mode and just ran with it. But
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, in all reality, I really anticipated the journal to be one singular book, maybe 250 pages. I had, the beginning, the end all in mind. I kind of had the different, the real big plot points along the way I wanted them to do. And so it was like, okay, I just need the filler kind of in between how they get, from A to B to C and onward. And it wasn't until I really started writing and I got to a certain point and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm already 100 pages in and I'm like 10% of the way through this book. And sure enough, I mean, overall, it ended up turning to like right about 1,000 pages. And I remember thinking, okay, well, two books, then I'll split it in half, no big deal. And I started writing the second one, and I got far enough that my Google Docs started crashing just all the time. It just couldn't handle it. And then you were the one that convinced me, like, no, you can't, you got to make a third book. And it was kind of like, okay, well, here we go. So yeah, what I meant to be about 250 pages turned into 1,000 pages. I'd never written a book, of that length. A couple of short stories and stuff when I was a young kid, but nothing to that caliber. And so I just didn't really anticipate it, taking up that much space, but it did.
Yeah. Well, and there's actually other people I've had on my podcast that were like, I could never write 100,000 words. Like it seems like a huge thing to do, and you'd be surprised how
Mhm.
quickly you hit that number. Like you said, that you were just like, oh my gosh, 1,000 pages. I did not, I expected, 200, 400 maybe, but 1,000? What?
Right.
Yeah, let's just say, okay, if you had your way, this would have been one book.
Yeah. I didn't expect it to be that big, but
Yeah, well, well, even this one probably wouldn't have been too terrible, but this is about, yeah, when I was like, no, you're gonna have to add in something or split it or something, and we made that decision. I was like, you can't do that to people. No, it was an interesting journey because again, you started off doing a series, and I might have been working on Crimson Lies around that time, or maybe like halfway through your second and third book. And so we kind
yeah,
of,
somewhere in there.
yeah, because I remember leaning on that a lot, where I was like, writing a series is a whole new thing because you have to be
Mm.
consistent through three whole books, which is, like you said, thousands of pages. And then even back to your editing thing you're talking about, reading thousands of pages over and over and over again.
Hmm.
Like, how many times do you think you've read at least the first book?
Oh gosh, probably, I don't know. Honestly, somewhere probably between 30 and 40 times, only because when I would write it, I'd write, a couple chapters or a chapter or however much I got done. And so when I would go back, to like, start typing again, I would I'd reread usually at least the last chapter, if not everything I wrote, or however much, just kind of get myself back into the groove of what was going on in the story. Or like if it was a certain situation, that maybe took up three chapters. Sometimes I'd be like, well, I guess we'll start three chapters ago. And I'd reread all that. And I usually would go through and make a lot of edits and change things as I went. So, I mean, that was another thing. I kind of edited as I went, but then there was kind of the final edits at the end. But yeah, I mean, just reading it over, I mean, a lot, a lot of
Yeah.
times.
I normally ask this question later on, but I want to ask it now. What is your least favorite thing about writing?
Hmm. Least favorite thing about writing. Honestly, probably the editing, only because like when you get to that, like, you've already, especially for me, I've already edited as I went through, you know, several times. And then it's like I get it all together and then I reread through the whole thing again at once. And then I'm like, okay, I think I got 80 to 90%. You get that author proof copy. And then it's like you got to reread it again and you go through. And that's just what I did is I got the author copy read through and physically, for whatever reason, I could catch more stuff in the actual book than like the Google Doc. And um, when I was reading it, like I said, I would go through and kind of do it all. And it's like you get to the end of that, and then it's like, okay, now I'm ready for my final draft. But it's just like at that point, you're like, man, I'm just so done with this. Like I'm just ready to hold the last book and just be done and move on to the next thing. Especially when you had the series, it was like I just had all these ideas in my head, just like I just want to do nothing but write them out. So that was actually I was writing, I think up to like almost 100 pages in the second book before I'd even published the first book, because it was like just kind of a continuation of the last scene in a sense from the first one. So it was like I was almost like I don't want to edit anymore. I just want to just keep writing and keep going with the story. So I did kind of procrastinate a little bit with that part. So yeah, definitely that final editing draft after you've done it like 10 times already.
Yeah. Well, and you kind of did differently than some people do, or at least I haven't seen anyone else do it this way. You had the first one published, and then you, like you said, you already had the second one started a little bit, which people do that. But you had the second and third one written, and you published them together. So, like some people
Yeah.
do the one at a time. You're just like, I'm just gonna put them both out there so that it's just done. That you don't have to wait. There's no reason to wait. It's already done. There you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, because that I did actually have it was probably the same deal. It was probably about 100 pages of the third one written up when the Google Doc was crashing. And you convinced me like you got to split it up again, and then I was like, okay, so I kind of split it up, and I really don't remember exactly in the series of events, but I mean, I definitely like wrote a lot more of the third one before fully editing the second one, and I think I kind of edited all like the second and third one kind of at the same time in a way. Like I mean, it was definitely a little bit here, a little bit there, but yeah, it did kind of go in one, you know, one huge thing all at the end. But yeah, I kind of got to a point where I was like, well, I don't really just want to put the second one out, and especially since I didn't expect it to be three novels, I want to just get it done, have it all ready, and then just put it out. I kind of felt like I'd feel more under the gun if I'd put out the second one and then be like, okay, now I have to do the third one and do it quick enough to keep the audience engaged. And I was like, I really just want to get the last two done and just get them out and kind of move on to the next book, book baby project sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, like you said too, you kind of had it in a way you were going to have it be one book. And so having it edited and do everything at the same time was like just editing one long book, but you put out two books. So that makes sense to me that it's just
Right.
easier. So what is your favorite part of the writing process?
Um, Honestly, I guess the brainstorming part when like you kind of get the idea for the story and you're kind of getting hyped up like okay I could do this, so you have like kind of the base idea, and then as you're thinking again kind of like okay how are the characters going to get from A to B, or what is my final goal here, and then you kind of start thinking like okay well maybe they could do this or they could do that, and then it's like just as you kind of keep building this puzzle together like you just start seeing the picture more and more, and like you get to a point where you're like it just kind of clicks to you in a way and you're like you kind of see the whole picture overall and you're like okay I know what I need to do, and you just kind of really start building it. So really that whole again brainstorming and I guess in like outlining process of it, because I did get to a point where again I kind of had it all in my head. I had never really put it to paper, but after I did the first book I planned out the next two of them and like every step of the way they were going to take. And I mean, it was like 3 pages front and back, with just bullet points and everything of each individual thing I kind of wanted. And so I really liked that because it was almost like almost feel like you wrote the book already. You're just like, okay, here it is. I just got to make it bigger.
Yeah. So for people who haven't, and we probably should have done this first, so that's on me, my bad. But people who haven't heard of the journal, this is the first one. This is just the journal. We'll go through the other few books really quick. You have the second one was just the journal, Trials of the Wild. The third one, the journal, the longest, whoop, there it goes, the long journey. So all of those, do you have kind of a summary? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but do you have a summary, like for someone who hasn't heard of what this book is, what is the general idea of this series, or at least the first book?
Okay, so try to keep this as concise as I can without giving away too much. Um, so it's kind of a group of college kids, and they're kind of each doing their own thing. And one of them manages to dig up a bacterium in an ice core in Antarctica. And that kind of, through a series of events leads to basically a zombie apocalypse. And the students are at a college. The whole college kind of gets locked down. And they soon realize that, this isn't just like a localized thing or just like a one off. Like this disease is spreading through the whole world. And I mean, it's within like days. that, from the one of the main characters digging it up and realizing like, oh my gosh, this is what's happening and this is what's caused it, to getting back to the college itself, and the military comes and it's a whole big quarantine, and then there's kind of a guy there that informs them of really the scale of what's happening around the world. Again, it's not like a localized thing, it's happening everywhere. The whole world's just kind of going up in flames, which there's other groups and stuff, but which they have limited information overall, but they get tasked with like, you guys have to help kind of make a piece of the puzzle to the cure here. And then that's kind of the becomes the mission of humanity is, well, we got to make a cure to this. And so like, so they get kind of tasked with making a portion of it because they have the physical samples, like from the original samples from the ice core, that again, one of the main characters kind of smuggles back, not realizing the how bad it's really going to be, or really what she's carrying. She just thinks that at first, like, hey, this is something really cool, and decides to keep it. And then once she realizes what's going on, like I said, it becomes a whole thing there. But yeah, that's kind of basically it for the first one, at least.
Yeah. So they find the virus, spread the virus, but they also are the ones trying to get the cure, which I like that you did that. I like that you have like they're not the bad guy, but they are, but they're not the good guy, but they are. Like they have that character growth there is a very interesting arc.
Yeah, I really wanted, because a lot of like the zombie stuff is usually just like, hey, it's a zombie, hey, it's this virus, or it's this thing, or it's whatever. Like, I mean, I'm not definitely a trailblazer in this sense, where of like, but you don't usually get of where it came from, what's going on. And usually if you do, it's not like, hey, here's a cure and here's something we can do, and we got to get this cure to the right people, sort of thing. So I almost wanted to make like an apocalyptic book of, the origin of it and everything that happens in between, to solving the problem overall. So you kind of divert this world-ending calamity, and it's from start to finish, it's the same people doing it.
I really like how you tied all that together in it too. So like the reader is involved, the like you said, from finding it to curing it. We want to give that away. I mean, that's kind of the whole point of the book.
Right.
So you did that. You did that whole series. You knocked out, like, you're like, okay, now I'm an author. I know what I'm doing. And then you're like, I feel
Oh,
like
I have
pretty
heard that.
quickly. No, I know sort of what I'm doing. But I feel like pretty quickly you turn around and you're like, hey, I have this idea. And I'll let you explain where the idea came from. But then we created The Killer Within, which is a collaborative book that we wrote together. And that's a whole story on its own. You actually
Hmm.
have that copy. I don't have a copy in front of me right
Oh
now.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's it's on top here. So that's the Killer Within here. Try to dodge the light.
Oh, look at that
And this
glossy cover being all
artwork
shiny.
was done by one of our friends, they are named in there, but you kind of get the back and the front. Not that you'll be able to read that quick, but what really got me into the book itself was, um, there's I can't think of the word, but it's like a driver of the story where it's several people in a group in a very small determined area for a very short period of time. And I was actually reading an article about a movie, and I've still never seen the movie. I kind of want to watch it in a way, just because that's where I read or I saw this movie trailer, and or read the article or whatever, and they were talking about it, and they talked about that, um, that story driver of that handful of people, small place for a very short period of time. And I was kind of like, oh, that would be kind of cool, because my last, the journal, it was like people from, you know, Antarctica to way over here to way across the country. So it was like, that was kind of almost a thing that I had a plan around, of like these people getting from, basically across the globe. So it was kind of a whole thing where I was like, this is a lot easier because it's just a handful of people in one place, and I don't have to make a bunch of filler to get them from A to B, sort of thing. And so yeah, I kind of just was like, okay, well, what would I want to do? And I was like, well, I'd kind of like to do a paranormal, thing. So I was like, okay, so like a haunted house, that'd be, easy. And so I just started, you know, thinking, okay, well, I'll need X amount of characters. And I mean, I literally, from reading that article to thinking this up, and just like spouting it out like, okay, the general idea of it. And then I started making character profiles. I mean, within like 2 or 3 hours, like I almost had the book planned out. It was just this for me sitting on the couch, not planning to do this at all. To boom, there it is. And that was like, I know you've probably said it on, a handful of times, but the downloads, that was one of those, like, it just, it all just came crashing down. And I was like, I got to get this out right now. I
Hmm.
just wrote it all out and there it was. And so
Yeah.
that one, I mean, I feel like from the idea of it to starting to write it to um, editing, publishing, everything, it was barely over a year. I mean, it was a year and maybe 3 months or something. And
Yeah.
but yeah, it went super fast compared to the journal series, which took several years.
That's actually what I was going to ask is like, I mean, I was a part of this process, so well, a part of both processes, but it is interesting. Like, you went from these massive, chunky series to um, one little book. Like, how quick that felt. I mean, it's still not small.
Well,
Like, it's 400 pages or almost
it
500.
is actually it is 430 something, 428 to the very end with the like follow us thing. It's the longest book so far. It's a handful of pages longer than The Long Journey, so it's actually the biggest book. But when you consider 1,000 pages versus you know however many we just said, 400 something, it,
428,
it
I think.
seemed,
Yeah.
yeah, it seemed a lot shorter. Like I said, it was just almost like putting the book in sixth gear and just going. I mean, it went pretty quick.
Yeah, I think it was the downloads thing for sure because we had already stumbled. We stumbled with the first one and we were, going through all the like what editing and formatting and uploading it to Kindle and, Kindle Create and that guy. Is that the, yeah, what's
Yeah,
it called? Yeah, that guy.
yeah.
So fighting all that stuff, we had, so it kind of slowed us down for the journey or the journal. But then you get to the Killer Thin and we had already learned a lot of this stuff. And so actually what we did here was because you're obviously very good at descriptors and you have plenty to say compared to what I do. Let's compare your book versus my book. Like I just want the base idea out. I'm not descriptive, but you're very descriptive. And so that's what we did with this one is that I'm really good at putting down the base of a story. And then that's exactly what we did is you gave me that document within like hours of us talking about it. And I was like, this is insane, but okay. Like we've already talked about it. It's in our head. We're brainstorming. And so I'm going through your document and it's very well written, like detailed, organized, hair color, eye color, background,
Mhm.
how they perish, which we can get into that too. I just had to go through and like kind of do the base foundation for it, and then he came in afterwards and fluffed it up, and he put in so much more detail. Like we did collaborate on the story. Like there's definitely parts that I was way over here with, and he's way over here, and we had to come together and find
Yeah,
that.
that caused us to kind of go back and have to rewrite a handful of things, but
Yeah,
yeah,
even
we
though
figured
he
it out.
had the details, I changed the ethnicity of one of the characters on accident, and it did play a part. And so I was like, we have to keep it. So there
Yeah,
was
there
a
was
little bit.
a handful of things like there's a couple things that I can't think of them off the top of my head, but that I was like, no, 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 like I really thought of it going this way, and like you had gone like the other way. So, and kind of vice versa too, were things that like you had wrote, and I'm like, okay, I really like that, but I didn't plan for that. So there's things I had to go back and like rewrite,
Mm,
from my end or your end or whoever. So yeah, that I will say that was a little confusing because it was like I couldn't remember the exact spot or like the characters jump around so much, and it's like you'll like the next chapter will give you like 10 minutes prior to the end of the other chapter, but from like the other person's perspective in a different part of the house. So it was like, wait, what part is this in? So I almost had to just do like a control find and find the actual, spot or the word. Like I know this one phrase stuck out or something. So I had to type that in and find it like, okay, and then like kind of scroll back and forth and make sure I really, crossed all the T's and dotted the I's to make sure I didn't say one thing and then 3 pages later it was the other thing. So yeah, that was a little confusing, but like I said, that's just it was a learning experience for both of us. And actually, I mean, still overall it went very smoothly, I think.
yeah, no, I feel like it went pretty well. I think the editing definitely was because you came in after me. And so we did have a few like discussions there where you're just like, wait, what? And thankfully we had like, the Google Doc. And so we were able to do the comments back and forth to each other. There was a few of those
Yeah.
that were like what in the world are you doing here kind of comments. But no, I think and when we got the proof copy, and that's when we could go through and like, because I also do better at the proof
Hmm.
copy. Like I just see different things, and so we went through and we're like, wait a second, because it. I think what really tripped us up a little bit was it was a small amount of time, and like you said, that we were jumping all over the house in different times, and so I think that's where it
Yeah.
really kind of tripped us up. That we're like, so this happened in 5 minutes. I don't believe you. Like that doesn't make any sense, and so we had to
Well,
really break that down.
yeah, and it was definitely your idea that like we put times, like an actual time in. So it'll say like whichever character and then what time. That way, as the reader's going through, because it does flip around so much, and you can read something where like something dramatic happens, and you're like, oh my gosh, and then it kind of goes back to the other person, and you're like, wait, but didn't that person just do the other thing? Like, what's going on here? So it almost helps to see that like, okay, this happened, and then when it goes to the next person, it's 5, 10, 15, whatever minutes beforehand. So you kind of know like, oh, I'm leading up to that person doing it. So now I get to see it from their perspective and what's going on in their head and what's happening. So it kind of, there is a lot of kind of like, not really jump scares, but again, kind of like a big reveal sort of thing. And it, kind of, you get kind of blindsided by a lot of stuff. And then, then you get to see it from that character's perspective, and it kind of takes you through step by step by step, getting to it. So you kind of see the breakdown really of, literally the mental breakdown of each character kind of as it goes on,
Hmm.
as it progresses through.
Yeah. Did we already? I can't remember. Did we already say what this book is about?
No, we did not.
Okay.
It is it's a paranormal murder mystery. And actually, what kind of the best way I think I found to describe it for those that have seen the movie Clue, it's like Clue, but just imagine a bunch of ghosts and younger people, and kind of a different reason for being there, I guess. But if you just imagine like just the general idea of Clue and just throw some ghosts and spooky stuff in there, you get a pretty good idea of it.
Yeah, because it is a whodunit. People do start to perish. They just
Mhm.
stop breathing. And so it's kind of wondering, like the reader, hopefully at some point is just like, what is happening? But we do, come together at the end. We give the example or the answer of what's going on there. And hopefully the ending, I love the ending so much. I love where we ended with that. I think that's where we took the longest break, is that we were really trying to figure out how to end it. Like we had the general idea of
Yeah,
like what's happening here, but then we are like, but where do we end it?
yeah, it was almost kind of like how crazy do you get, because there's kind of like a driving um, storyline in there about the house itself, and what the house meant in the community that it's in, and who owned the house, and kind of the backstory, and really the very end kind of plays into that backstory. So it's not just like spooky ghost and everyone's freaking out. It's there's almost like two stories in one, the past and the present, and they're kind of almost melding together as the characters go through, and each one has a little more, a little less information about the house itself, and kind of the history behind it, and the infamous past, that it played into it.
So the two things I wanted to do, which you can take which
Yeah.
one we would do first. I wanted to ask if you had advice for indie author, and then also talk about your work in progresses. So which one do you want to hit first?
Okay. Advice for indie authors would just be, you know, don't doubt yourself. Just don't. Just if you have an idea, if you think it's great, I promise you someone else is going to think it's great. I mean, just get it out there. It's probably going to take some time for people to really, I mean, I feel like a lot of indie authors have this, where it's just getting it out there, getting the advertising for people to see it and for people to read it, and getting the feedback. And I mean, really seeing that feedback, so that, oh wow, someone else really does like this. I mean, they're going to be out there, and not everyone that reads is going to leave the review and all that. But and I was kind of skeptical. I showed you years ago the prologue to the journal, and I had that, and that was it, and it was just in my head, and I let it sit for months and months and months and months, and I just never did anything with it until I showed you, and you were like, no, you should definitely do something with this. And so I eventually did, obviously. But and that's the thing is, don't doubt yourself. Everyone kind of has that what is it, imposter syndrome or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yep.
But just if you think it's great, don't doubt yourself. Just go with it. Someone else, I promise you, is going to think it's just as awesome as you do.
Hmm. Absolutely. And you want to get into your work in progress? What do you have going on right now?
So right now I've done a couple short stories for some anthologies. That's one of those like you basically a lot of people are sending them in. So I think I've done two of those or something.
Yeah, too.
Um, yeah, so I've done two of those and sent them in. I don't know if they'll, I haven't heard if they'll be accepted or not. I don't even actually recall when like um, the final say, so to speak, is. So, I guess that's something we might have to look into. But I'm doing, well, actually, do we want to
Oh,
do the
yeah.
review?
So,
Oh,
big reveal. TA Books is actually doing, in our little group of four people, we're doing four anthologies. So each of one of us is going to have an anthology on a specific genre. And so we're writing short stories for each other's book. So we have four stories to write. I mean, they're short. So I feel like May's already just
yeah.
rocking it. She's just running through these stories. So you're
She
working
can
on,
just,
she's killing
I was gonna
it.
say, she can just spit these things out left and right like crazy.
Yes.
I will say I'm the slowest one, at least especially with the
I'm the slowest. I don't have
anthologies
the topics.
right now. Oh, well, yeah, May's just flying through them. That girl's got cheetah hands or something. I mean, it's crazy. But yeah, so we're each doing anthologies. So we're gonna have four books and four different stories in each one of them. So I'm working. I have all the ideas except for one of them because it's romance, and that's not me at all. So that one's I'm kind of almost saving that one for last because that's going to be the hardest. But I have the other ideas for the others. So I'm working on. I think mine we decided was like thriller.
Yeah, action thriller.
So
Yeah.
I'm working on that now. Um, After the anthologies, I mean, I have plans for other novels. My first one that I'd like to do, that we got to work on the anthologies first, but down the line, it's kind of going to be more of an AI related book. As big as that is right now, I kind of want to do something with that. And it's another one of those ideas that's just been kind of in my head for a long time, and just kind of put my fingers to the keyboard and kind of get it out there.
Yeah. No, I'm excited. I'm excited for the anthologies and your AI book you've been talking about for yeah, years. And so, yeah, that's
Yeah,
definitely right there, ready to go. So you have a lot, and you have a lot of other ideas that you want to do too. I mean, I feel like you're getting
yeah.
more downloads, like the more you get into like these short stories kind of just, I think, inspired all of us because I think it is important to sit down and constantly write. And I don't think
Mhm.
any of us had tackled a short story before this.
No,
So it's a little
No, I
different.
mean, aside from stuff I did like in school very young, and that actually might be some more advice to like an indie author is like some of my books, like I've had in my head, and I'm like, I really just don't know where to go with them. Like I have a general idea, but I don't know about all these different fillers and this overarching storyline, like I might have with the journal. But if you're you really want to write it, but you just can't think of all this extra fluff in there, just write a short story. I mean, honestly, after I wrote the first short story, which I think it had to be like 10,000 words or less. I mean, I put that out in like it wasn't even a week, and that was making it, like coming up with the idea, which that was another like quick download. Thought of it, planned out the characters, made the story, edited it, sent it in, done, and that was it. So I mean, so that'd be another thing. If you know, even if you don't have to make this huge novel, just make these short stories. Just get the idea out there, and you may find as you're writing it, you just more ideas are popping into your head, firing off, and you can build upon it. Or if you just have lots of short stories, I feel like some readers, they almost feel like they don't have time to sit down and read, 1,000 pages of a trilogy or something. So putting a bunch of different short stories out there could get your name out there, a lot quicker.
Yeah. And there's no right way to write a story either. So like there's no
Oh,
right way, no wrong way. So if you go through it and you're like, there's this chunk here, like I know how to get from here to here, but I don't know what to put in here, leave yourself a comment and be like, come back to
yeah,
this.
and just like, hey,
Like
add
general
something
idea.
here.
Yeah. And
Right.
then just come back to it later when you're editing, because then as you're going through, you can kind of it'll come alive. Like the characters just take the stories anyways, so you
They
don't have
do.
control.
Right.
So you actually are not on social, and that's totally fine. But that's why we have the TA Books team, and that and we advertise your books on there as well. So if anyone is looking for his books are on Amazon, and also we'll be promoting them on the TA Books page. And we just wanted to get you on here and show your face and put your face to your books and talk about your books. No, the face of the book. Oh, you're so funny.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if it didn't click back, probably. I don't know. we have about a minute left, and
Yep,
I'm
perfect
excited to
timing.
see where TA Books goes, and I'm excited to see where your books go. And these anthologies are very exciting. So
Hmm.
I don't know when they're going to be done. It's going to be a
I
hot
feel like,
second.
yeah, I feel like at least a year, but when they come out, it'll just be like boom, 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 and it'll be a bunch of them all at once. So I feel like we're going to double how much stuff TA Books has in just like, in this very short period of time. So I am excited for it.
Oh yeah, we have a lot of books. If you are unaware, we have like probably 17 books between all four of
Hmm.
us. It's a lot.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah,
more
I'm
to
excited.
come.
And way more to come. Yeah, everyone's working on something or multiple somethings. Everyone's working on
Perfect.
multiple somethings. I can strongly say that because I know for a fact. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, thank you for being on today, and
All right.
we hope to see
Thanks for having me.
what happens next.
All right. Looking forward to it.
Bye.